Second.
Good Friday evening, and welcome to another edition of Folks Talking Sports, presented by Houston Roundball Review and sponsored by Steve Saxenian and the Saxenian family. I'm Kris Gardner, co-founder of the Houston Roundball Review. Been around since as long as these two guys, my guests, partners, have been alive. James Mueller from the Daily Cougar and Yanez from the Community Impact newspaper. Young men, how are you today?
Cold.
Cold, yes. All of us are cold, and it's funny. We're cold here in H-Town. Willie Gibson is in Ohio. He joined me yesterday, and I think yesterday in Ohio it was 24 degrees, something like that, and it was snowing, but it was icy, and it was bad enough ice-wise that it took Will twice as long to get home from work than usual. Okay, so, and I said to him then, and you're used to it. So that shows you what we couldn't probably handle that at all if that would have been bad like that down here in H-Town. But let's get into it. And we're going to talk mostly U of H, athletics, football, basketball. But just within the last few minutes, the NBA announced the Rising Stars participants for the rookies and sophomores. And I got to say, and I didn't know much about it because I'm not going to watch most of this like I used to. But the captains, it's four teams, 7 youngsters for each team. A Hall of Fame player picked, had a draft. Rick Barry, Isaiah Thomas, Gary Payton, and James Worthy were the captains for the team. Looks like Isaiah Thomas had the first overall pick. Okay, and this is rookies and second-year players. Isaiah Thomas, Mr. Detroit Piston, and if y'all don't know, I am a Pistons fan till I die. Been a Pistons fan since 1986. So Isaiah Thomas, Mr. Detroit Piston, with the first pick. Have y'all seen the results?
I have not. I've seen the results. I didn't see like the order they picked them, but I saw the teams.
Isaiah Thomas picked Anthony Edwards. Not Kate Cunningham, Anthony Edwards with the first pick. And then second pick, John Barry, whoever it was, Rick Barry. Yeah, Rick Barry picked Evan Mobley. LaMelo Ball was third. Cole Anthony was fourth. Josh Giddey fifth. Scotty Barnes sixth. Cade Cunningham, the first pick of this year's draft, was picked seventh. And then teammate Sadiq Bey. But ironically, the Team Barry team has Alperen Şengün on it and Jay Sean Tate. So Rocket fans, there you go there. Jalen Green is on the team. He's on James Worthy's team. So split up there. But it's weird. Team Barry, Evan Mobley, Kate Cunningham, Franz Wagner, Jay Sean Tate, Isaac Okoro, Alperen Şengün, Dyson Daniels from the G League. So I think Team Barry has a good mix. But it's just interesting. I'm like, Isaiah, you're Mr. Piston. You're not going to show love to the first pick in the draft from the Detroit Pistons. First pick, hell, a long time since the Pistons were relevant in the draft. And you're going to pick Anthony Edwards? So I wonder if there's any, what is it called? Pistons Twitter has had any reaction to that while Detroit is playing right now. But anyway, let's talk some football. That's one reason why I got you guys on. Signing day, what is it now? Because we got the first one in December. Is this used to be the official signing day? Now it's the February signing day? I don't know, whatever you want to call it. What did Coach Holgorsen and U of H football do? James, Andy, whoever wants to enlighten me, please.
I mean, they didn't make Dana available to the media, but I mean, they did their typical, Twitter, Instagram, welcome each player. They've got some nice pickups. Some of the guys they signed, we already knew were coming, but just hadn't officially signed. Like Joseph Manjack, the receiver from USC, he officially signed the other day. But then there were some other ones that like announced their commitments too. So it was a mix of both. Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Andy? Do you have anything to add? Any of your pearls of wisdom to add with the guys who Coach Colgo signed officially?
No, I was just gonna kind of add on to I believe it was the question you were gonna ask, just like overall thoughts on what they've been able to do. I saw I don't remember what exact platform it was. I believe it was 24/7 Sports or one of those outlets that moved Houston's recruiting class to like the second in the American Athletic Conference, and I believe it was I want to say top 50, top 60 in the whole country.
It's 49.
49, so
Okay.
top 50. So with the last couple of moves, they've been able to rise. And there's been some noise. I believe they had 2 4-star recruits out of the whole class, and the rest 3-star and all 5-star recruits. But I mean, there's not much more to add other than a lot of movement, especially a lot of transfer movement from across the country, around the country.
And just going to read off the names. This is from uhcougars.com. A little homework before tonight's show. Tevin Shaw, offensive lineman from Manville, 6'5", 285, 3-star prospect per 24/7. Chose U of H over Arkansas State, Colorado State, Florida A&M, among others. So that's interesting. That's an interesting mix right there. Arkansas State, Colorado State, and FAMU. That's okay. Next, Logan Compton, tight end, 6'5", 240 from Tomball. He was at New Mexico Military School, ranked the number 2 JUCO tight end nationally and number 4 JUCO in Texas by 24/7 Sports. Okay. 3-star prospect. And I'm not big on stars, but it's part of the promotion where schools want to, get out there publicly. Chose U of H over Washington State, Memphis, Buffalo, Florida Atlantic, and Liberty, among others. Okay. That's an interesting mix. And then, as James mentioned, Joseph Manjack from Tomball, 6'3", transfer from USC. Young man who catches passes without wearing gloves. He's an old school receiver. I saw like that, 6'3", 205, good size. He was under-recruited, because I think we did talk about him on a previous FTS. Under-recruited out of high school at Tomball Memorial. And his coach couldn't really figure out why. I think people said he was slow. He clocked slow in the 40, yet nobody caught him in the games. So, okay, I'm good with that. I'm not big on 40 times. If you catch passes and don't get caught, you're the kind of guy for me that I would like on my team. So, other guys like that, let's see, it's a long bio there. Sam Brown, another receiver, West Virginia transfer, 6'2", 200. Good size there. So it looks like Coach Holgerson's getting good size receivers. But I wanted to get your thoughts because so far, correct me if I'm wrong, it has not got a commitment from a quarterback yet, signing from a quarterback. What does that tell you guys? That he's going to go JUCO for that or what?
So, I haven't seen a ton. I saw earlier, there was a guy named Darson Herman that's taking like a preferred walk-on spot as a quarterback. Someone sent that to me today. I had not seen that. I don't know if it's been official or not, but that's the only quarterback news I've heard in terms of adding on to the class.
Any height, weight on him?
Yeah,
like
6'3", 220, 4'7", 40, and he's from Georgetown High School. I don't know where exactly that is.
Oh, there's one in Texas, so that should be in state if it's that Georgetown, possibly. Okay. So and then we got. How about you, Andy? Have you heard anything more about quarterbacks for U of H?
I have not, but it's interesting you bring up that point because I know they've lost 2 quarterbacks throughout the course of the season, and Sophia and Sue and Maddox Kopp, who they were real high on when they got him to sign for the team, and didn't even last a full season with them.
So, James, Andy, either of you, have y'all heard that? Because I'm assuming it's still a priority to get a quarterback. Going to go the JUCO route for it, or or what?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, obviously Tune is going to be the starter, assuming he stays healthy. But they still they need to find his replacement. I probably will start in that second string role, but I expect them to probably try to find someone. They've been really heavy on JUCO, like you've said. So it wouldn't surprise me if they went the JUCO route or if they pick up like a late high school commit that's sort of been overlooked. But I don't have any insider information on that yet.
That's fine. Looking at the other signees, got a 3-star, another JUCO cornerback, Abdul Latif. Was it Audu? Cornerback from College of the Canyons in California. Chose Houston over Memphis. Hey, how about that? Houston beat Memphis for two players. That's always a good sign. Beating your in conference rival. Washington State, Texas State, Nevada, Missouri State, New Mexico State, and Southern Illinois, among others. And he enrolled at U of H last month. Jamal Morris, linebacker from Oklahoma. Okay, so transfer 6'2", 215. So it's a mix of, and he enrolled also last month at school. He played at Fort Bend. So it looks like the staff is either going back to getting some of the transfer signees who played high school ball locally and just left and decided to come back. I always say, never close that door, because the grass is not always greener, and sometimes young men and women want to come back. So do that. So that's good. And a quick hit surprise for you guys. If it happens, Coach Huey might join us this evening. Weather permitting, they know that they did arrive late last night from Tulsa after winning in Tulsa Wednesday. They were stuck in Tulsa Thursday for much of the day because of the weather. They got back late Thursday. So Coach Huey has been invited, but they're preparing for SMU Sunday. So I'm not sure if he'll be able to join us this evening. But let's talk about the women's team snapping that losing streak. 6-game losing streak. I'm going to say what I heard. Y'all tell me if I heard differently or similar. Some folks were getting a question, Coach Huey, during that losing streak about, is it time to move in another direction? Had y'all heard anything like that during the losing streak?
I'm gonna go ahead and say no, but I remember really in the midst of that 6-game losing streak, it was so kind of, obviously the game that started it was the close loss to UCF, where they rallied. They had it would seem like probably 4 or 5, maybe even more opportunities to tie the game at the very end on the final possession, and just were not able to get over the hump against UCF. But I remember in our Potsdam Jamma podcast talking with Dayon, we after that loss, we kind of discussed how it could be used more as a positive. They showed that they could compete with UCF, who they hadn't been able to really honestly compete at all. It always seemed like they were losing by double digits whenever they had to play the Knights in previous seasons, and then the completely opposite happened, where they were just unable to really carry any type of momentum. It seemed like it did the opposite, and really offensive struggles during that 6-game losing streak. I believe they hadn't been able to score more than 60 points throughout the entire losing streak that got capped off by the abysmal performance against USF.
On national television.
For sure. And good for them. They were able to pull off a 1-point win against Tulsa. Now they have to turn around and really, at this point, there's not any chance that an at-large bid is probably less than 1%, probably less than 0.5%. So
it's zero. No,
yeah,
it's zero.
Yeah, for sure. So from this point forward, really has got to focus on trying to, get going at the right time, so they can, once the American Athletic Conference tournament starts at the end of the season, they can make a run and steal a bid, because really that's the only hope they have to be able to reach the goal that they set forth at the beginning of the season. They had the hashtag of unfinished business, and it has certainly been a disappointment. They had the shaky start to the season. Seemed like they had figured stuff out, and then after the UCF loss, it just all fell apart again.
James, what do you want to add about the U of H women's basketball?
Yeah, I mean, Andy hit most of it. I mean, this next month of games is a stretch where they get an opportunity to sort of try to work out those kinks and, like Andy said, get on a roll when it comes time for the conference tournament, because that's the only way they're gonna have a shot at sneaking in. We'll see how much this win does for them. I know they were down, I think 12 or something after the first quarter against Tulsa, so they showed their ability to come back there, and so we'll see if they're able to ride this momentum or if it's going to continue to just be, an up and down season where it's just periods of wins and then long periods of losses.
You touched on it. Excuse me. The team did come back. They trailed in that game and came back to defeat Tulsa on a putback bucket by Bria Patterson. So the comeback kind of showed that they had not quit on the coaching staff, which, some folks were beginning to wonder because of some of the poor performances and the poor shooting and the blowout losses. Made you wonder if they had just tuned out the coaches. So the comeback was a positive. It's kind of hard to really know what's been happening with the team because Bria Patterson had been injured for a few games. We never really were told what was wrong. Diamond Gladney, point guard, missed a few games. I heard personal reasons, but never anything more than that. So they did not have their full lineup, during the 6-game losing streak. So that probably contributed to some of the losses. But we don't know. Still no Zoom calls, right? Unless y'all know something I don't. No Zoom calls, no interaction with the media, very much from the media department. The interaction I have with Coach Hugh, he's, direct, but he was non-committal regarding injuries or anything like that. So kind of left in the dark about all that. So it's a stark contrast between women's basketball and men's basketball. So I'm going to stop that because I forgot to say this at the top of the show. Allow me to vent, young men, for just a few seconds.
Take it away.
Before tonight's show, Coach Silas, Stephen Silas with the Rockets head coach Stephen Silas is on his Zoom call in San Antonio before the Rockets face the Spurs in a few minutes tip-off. I don't know what it is about AT&T Center. I don't know if it's the Spurs, audio people, engineering people. We could not hear jack on the Zoom call. The media questions from in the room, no idea. Our silence right now, if we stop talking, would be the level of audio we heard, level of volume we heard from the questions. No idea. Just none whatsoever. This is the NBA franchise. Okay, as one colleague is, y'all know, well, I want to say his name, I'm going to out him like that. But one of our colleagues that y'all know, we texted afterwards, $1 billion business cannot figure out how to have good audio for a Zoom call for the media. Seriously. And I thought it was just the Rockets being the visiting team. So I checked out Coach Pop's pregame session. Just as bad. So I don't know what it is. If it's the building is too old, that's an excuse because they still should have enough money to be able to fix it. If you have to have multiple microphones to pass around to the media in the room to ask the questions, we had no idea what was being asked of the coaches. None. So I did the best I could with audio software to boost it. And even then you still couldn't hear some of the questions in the room. So for any fans who are watching now on Twitter, YouTube, whatever, and go to my channel and see the pregame session from Coach Silas and wonder why it's so poor in spots, it's because the NBA does a crappy job in San Antonio. Let's call it out like that. The Spurs, if it's y'all, so be it. If y'all don't know what y'all are doing, so be it. If y'all shorthanded, I don't know what it is, enlighten me, because it's not the first time it's been poor audio for Rocket Spurs game in San Antonio. So the last time Red Sox Rockets met there a few weeks ago, crappy audio. It was just ridiculous. So now I'm done. Okay. Have y'all had bad experiences like that on Zoom calls for games? For just period. Anything bad like that? Andy, in your job, James, in your job at the Cougars?
Yeah, I'll start with my even going back whenever I was still at U of H covering UH athletics for Cougar. You guys can attest, like occasionally, depending on what stadium it is, sometimes it's literally just dead spots, and you have the SID for the men's basketball team apologizing for just the bad connection. But even then, now that occasionally, whenever I also have to do Zoom interviews with a couple of other people, there are times where, and honestly, it has to do with the internet connection in our facility that it's just dead spots that literally have to take my laptop. I'm mid-interview, it'll cut off, and I have to move to another spot because the Wi-Fi is not good. So 2020 problems. But for an NBA team, especially if it's something, maybe if it's season long, maybe it was just today. But I mean, they got to figure out something to change, whether it's, like I said, literally move or they hold the meeting somewhere else or add extensions to the Wi-Fi or at least a Wi-Fi hotspot on the room.
But Andy, it wasn't Wi-Fi.
It was the audio itself.
The audio was
well,
awful.
In that instance, they just got to do what UH does and have a microphone that amplifies your voice whenever they literally hand it to you, and that way, I mean, UH seems to have it figured out whenever they record their art stuff that they post on YouTube. So
yeah,
that's different. That's just not having the proper equipment.
James, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I can echo what Andy said. I feel like UH has done a pretty good job in terms of like home stuff, especially in 2020. But some of the away games for both football and basketball, when they do Zoom, there's just parts where they freeze up or you can't hear anything.
Don't get me started whenever the football team played at Rice.
Oh yeah, for sure. That was not good at all.
And go ahead. Come on. Go ahead, guys. Well, let Andy, you tell it, because James, I don't want to get you in trouble because you're still at the Cougars. So Andy, you tell it.
No, James would be fine, but I remember it was super laggy. Like every time anyone would try to ask, it would literally be cutting in and out, and I'm not sure if it was just the Wi-Fi in the press box that we had at Rice Stadium, but literally you'd have Dana Holgerson trying to ask, like, "Oh, I can't hear him, and it's just it was not a good Zoom session after that game.
And Mark Berman from Fox 26 Sports, he wasn't on today's call, and thankfully, because we've had this issue sometimes other Rocket games, road games. And if Rocket PR department goes to Mark to ask a question, Mark says flat out, "Coach, I couldn't hear the question at all. So could you mind, so if you answer this already, I'm sorry." So he says it point blank.
Yeah.
So it's not the first time, but the Spurs are just awful. And my goodness, post game tonight should be an adventure. So I'm not looking forward to that at all. But anyway, okay. U of H basketball. Thoughts on the win over Tulane? Andy, were you working? Did you see it? Read about it? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I was able to catch the tail end of that game, really most of the second half. But I just thought it was impressive overall. Honestly, kind of carrying on with the theme that they've had all season, where it's to be honest, it's kind of been a different player each game, that if they needed a basket, it's someone else. And then in this game, Fabian White had a couple of big baskets. Ramon Walker, I think that was the most interesting thing, where Kelvin Sampson kind of rode with Ramon Walker, left Jamal Shedd for extended rest in that second half. I believe Jamal Shedd was in foul trouble too. Yeah. So
4 fouls with like a minute into the second half starting.
He sat out 14 minutes straight.
Yeah, so I'm sure that was a big factor. But even then, to be able to really hold Tulane at bay and put that game away, I think that shows, again, like we've talked about, this team they have veterans all over the place with their senior leadership, but it always seems like, to be honest, it seems like they've been there, done that. They don't really panic in terms of whenever a team makes a run, and it's always someone, whether in this past game that it was Fabian White or previous games where they've seen Kyler Edwards step up, Tajay Moore even going back all the way to the first game of the season, it just seems like, again, they're a veteran team and they know what it needs to do. And I believe I saw Kelvin Sampson or one of the quotes. I don't remember. It was post game. It was probably in the Zoom availability he had afterward, where he talked about this team. They know how to win.
James, what were your thoughts during the game? I thought Tulane played well.
Yeah, I agree. Going into the game, I thought it would be it was a possibility for an upset just because Tulane has. I think I've liked what Ron Hunter's been able to do with them, and they shot the ball pretty well in the first half, and then they were able to make a run there. I think they opened up like on a 10-3 run in the second half or whatever to get it within 5 or 7, something like that. So I was impressed what I saw from Tulane, but like Andy mentioned. Ramon Walker, he had a rough shooting night in that first half, but then after Tajay hit that 3 to end a Tulane run, he had a layup and then a 3 back-to-back. So those are big moments that like stick out to me just for, key development, giving him some confidence. And then Kelvin mentioned this post game, but just the difference it made when Jamal was in for the last 3-4 minutes. You could sense that, you could see it on the court, just how much that meant. And then, UH was able to get back up to double digits and hold off Tulane. So yeah, it was a good win. And there was a lot of good things I saw from both teams.
Yeah. I hope Jamal learns something from the foul trouble against Tulane, because the fourth foul was like around the 18-10 mark of the second half. So early in the second half, he already had 3 fouls. He tried to pick up a charge. So, block charge call. It's 50-50 call. You can't do that. He can't do that. Well, he's the only true point guard on the squad now because of injuries. We all know that. He can't do that. Give up the bucket, get out of the way. The reasoning behind it, yeah, you want to be in position, make a defensive player for your team, okay. But because of the 50-50 call, Jamal, you just can't do that. you just can't. And sitting down on the bench for 14 minutes, the offense struggled without Jamal. And James, you touched on it because Coach Sampson said it after the game. When Jamal came back in around that 4-minute mark, the offense, much better flow, clicked, penetration by Jamal, layups, it was much better. Add the question here. We got a question from Jay. Put it on the screen. Jay, I'm answer like this, and all 3 of us were mistaken a few weeks ago about Jamal Shead and injured and all that kind of stuff. A couple of weeks ago, I think Coach Sampson said that Marcus is done for the year. Okay, he said that a couple weeks ago. So, he said there's no chance of Marcus coming back this season. That's what he said. Marcus and Jamal, no chance. Today, Coach Sampson said, and you can go to the YouTube channel, pat on the back for me, Houston Roundball Review, and listen for yourself and judge for yourself. So at the end of the session, he mentions that Marcus is in a boot. And we saw Marcus, especially at the halftime, right before, at the end of the half, end of the first half, and Marcus was trying to hold back people talking trash to Tulane. Out of the back and forth, we saw Marcus in the boot. Coach Sampson is having to sit Marcus down at practice. Marcus is being a coach. Marcus is doing upper body work with Coach Alan Bishop, strength coach. So I'm not John Houston, the shaman, Mr. Medicine Man, who seemed to have all these magic touches. Coach Sampson did not say that there's a chance Marcus will play in March. I'm saying if it's possible, Marcus is going to try to play. If the bone heals, surgery was successful. I mean, he's younger because I forget there's an NBA guy.
Yes, someone got that same injury
with the Mavs. Tim Hardaway Jr. I think it is. Tim Hardaway Jr. had the same thing.
And the timetable for him was 6 weeks.
Right. So of course, bodies heal differently. We don't know how severe the break was in Tim Jr.'s toe compared to Marcus's, whatever. So I'm going to put it out there. Come March, maybe. So any chance? Yes. I'll just say maybe 2%. But yes, there's a chance Marcus comes back in March. They're not planning for it. They're not expecting it. They're not counting on it. Nothing like that. But we never know. We saw Jamal Shead miraculous healing in 2 days. So with an injury we thought was going to keep him out 2 weeks. So that's me. Kris Gardner saying that. That is not Coach Kelvin Sampson saying that. That is not John Houston saying that. That is not Jeff Conrad. Anybody with U of H basketball saying there's a chance Marcus is going to play in March. I'm saying that if it's just 1 or 2%, okay? But we have no reason to believe it's going to expect it. But it leads me to this question. Not going to get into all of it, but on ESPN this week, maybe Tuesday or so, maybe even yesterday, there was a discussion about the 4 teams that made the Final Four last year and their chances of returning to the Final Four. What their chances, what could benefit them to return and what could keep them from returning. Because ironically, I think there's a tweet referenced in the article that these 4 teams, we're talking Baylor, Zags, UCLA, U of H, none of them have more than 2 losses. So at this point, I think as of February 1st, these 4 teams, 4 Final Four participants from the previous year, have the best record of the 4 teams that made it in the following season. What do you think? You guys are smart. Jay, you're smart. Derek, you're smart. What do you think the rationale or the explanation was for U of H to not get back to the Final Four?
Oh, it's got to be missing Marcus Sasser.
They're going to go through scoring droughts without Marcus and Tremont.
Both answers are correct because it's depth. Depth and, obviously missing Marcus in the points, because what would happen if, had a case in point against Tulane. What would happen if Jamal Shead gets in foul trouble? The offense struggled. So the lack of depth in the backcourt, because front court depth is solid. Lack of depth, and it was coaching. I think member coaches in each team's conference were asked to chime in for the article. And I think it was, no names were, given, but an AAC coach commented on how much Jamal Shead has improved, but the lack of depth. What would happen if Jamal gets in foul trouble? Well, we saw it against Tulane, the struggles. But another point in the article or the discussion about U of H was how Coach Sampson and the staff always seem to have that one guard that has the neon green light. It was Rob Gray. It was Armani Brooks. It was Quentin Grimes. Early this season, it was Marcus Sasser. Now it's Kyler Edwards. And part of the quote, I'm paraphrasing, was Coach Sampson always seems to have one guard who can take 15 threes in a game because of that neon green light. Well, that's Kyler Edwards. Kyler Edwards, he may take 15 shots and 13 of them will be threes. He might make 3 of them, but he's got that neon green light to take those threes. So we see it. It's the coaching philosophy of the team, because we've covered the team for a few years. There is like a pattern established about a guard in this system that gets to shoot threes all the time. But the difference is now this team has balance because of Josh Carlton in the front court and Fabian White in the front court. So the gist of it was the balance and the front court scoring would be the reason that they could return to the Final Four. What are your thoughts on that?
I would tend to agree again, but when you get into making another Final Four run, a lot of it's got to do, it's got to do with matchup. It's got to do with luck. You got to have so many things break your way. I mean, last season when Houston made their Final Four run, they had a couple of lucky breaks with some of the other teams ahead of them that fell out. I mean, even the Tremont Mark tip-in, that was a big shot that, I mean, he has to be in the right position and make the right play. So it's so many variables to control. But I would agree. I think it's interesting, especially, Kevin Sampson has mentioned it. And it's interesting that it's kind of lined up perfectly with when they started conference play. But this team without Marcus Sasser and Tremont Mark, they're undefeated up to this point. They're 8-0. Like you mentioned, a big part of that has to do with that balance. Like Connor Edwards, it's in a perfect world, he's their volume scorer. If they need a big basket, they'll probably go to him late in the game. But again, it so far, especially during conference play, it seems like they're more than enough comfortable with going with whoever the hot hand is, and they have players that can step up and not just necessarily rely on Kyler Edwards, but Fabian White can hit a big shot. He's done it. Did it in last year's NCAA tournament. He's done it a couple of times during this season. They can go to Josh Carlton in the post in the paint if they need a basket. Jamal Shed can create, and really Tajay Moore has shown too that he can hit big shots. So I think certainly it's hard to compare teams because honestly, this team is a lot different from what it was last year. But to be honest, maybe they, like you mentioned, it is a more complete team that you can't necessarily focus in on one target and expect to slow Houston down. Last season, the focus would have been on Quentin Grimes, and you'd probably feel confident being able to, at the very least, muddy the game and have it be one of those slumber knocker defensive battles. And this year, it's kind of evolved more into Jamal Shed, you can limit him, but even then, they've shown that they can kind of stay afloat even without him.
Now, James and Andy, it's almost sound like you read the article as well, because part of what you referenced about matchups in the tournament and some luck, because we all know, we heard ad nauseum last season. U of H played a double seed every round until they got to the Final Four. We all know that. Okay, whatever, wasn't their fault. Okay, but James, what are your thoughts on Houston's balance and being more dependent on the front court, reliant on the front court for scoring for this team now, the team that is 8-0, helping their chance of a possible return to the Final Four?
Yeah, I mean, you can see they have this year what they were missing last year, which was that, scoring in the front court. I still think in terms of, yes, Josh, Fabian, guys like that can get you buckets, but I think down the stretch of come March, I just think the guard group is so thin. I think they can make a run, but I don't see a Final Four happening again, just because playing with four guards against some teams, they're going to run into somebody and there's going to be foul trouble, like you said, or just fatigue. You can't have, Kyler Edwards playing 40 minutes twice in 3 days.
Right.
So I think, the front court can carry them, and definitely it has so far, and they're still able to win. But come March, I don't see it being able to, carry them all the way back to the Final Four. But like a Sweet 16 is very plausible in my opinion.
Yeah, that's fair, a fair assessment, and I agree with you. I think this team getting to a Sweet 16 would be a success, because we get into the Sweet 16. Really, top teams advance that far. Top teams who play fast, because I'm not sure you guys could handle a team that plays fast and goes 9-10 deep, or has 5-6 guards to run at them, and a trapping team, a team that likes to full court press, I think would give U of H problems.
Especially if Jamal Shed gets in foul trouble. That's what Tulane capitalized against them.
Agreed, because no knock on Tajay Moore. Tajay's not a point guard. He's doing the best he can when he has the ball in his hands, running the offense, when he has to do that. So I'm not Don't get me wrong. They're going to try to win every game they play. I would just not counting on them to return back to the Final Four this season. I got a lot of positive vibes about next year's team based on who they got coming in and who they should returning. But as far as this team enjoyed the ride. I'm not sure if they're going to beat Cincinnati Sunday because I don't believe they're going to go undefeated in conference. Okay.
Yeah. And these next 2 games are probably their toughest chance, certainly up to this point, at Cincinnati and at SMU.
Agreed. And then you got Memphis on Saturday at home. So we would think they're going to lose one of these next 3 games. Okay. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. The sky won't fall if it happens, nothing like that. They're still going to the tournament. So it would be nice if another team from the conference would join them in the tournament. Because, the last 2 seasons, all of us have kind of predicted that the American would send multiple teams to the tournament. This season, for sure, is just U of H.
Yeah.
SMU is on a winning streak, but their non-conference performance wasn't great. So that's why I think they are they're
in the bubble. I think they were the first team out.
Yeah, first team out of the first 4 out. So, but touching on that, Joe Lunardi, ESPN, he has Houston a 3 seed today, as of today, the February 4th bracketology. Houston a 3 seed, Texas a 6 seed in the same quadrant, which would set up a potential matchup of Houston versus Texas in the round of 32. Winner goes to the Sweet 16. As an alum, U of H alum, I would love for that matchup to happen. It'd be just an extension or another matchup between Coach Sampson and Coach Chris Beard, because back to U of H, Texas Tech have played previous years. They match up in the preseason with their scrimmages. The secret scrimmages have happened for a while, so that'd be a good matchup. And it could be the last chance Houston plays Texas, because I still don't believe the Longhorns would be in the Big 12 when U of H joins the Big 12. Just don't believe that's going to happen. Guys, we're going to wrap it up shortly, but I had a thought. Let me pull up his name here. The Kansas athletic director, what is his name? Let's see here. He spoke to the board early this week. But Travis Goff, he touched on that he believes that when Texas and Oklahoma leave, that the next TV media deal that the Big 12 gets is going to be per team, the average payout per member, Big 12 member, is going to be a decrease. He wasn't sure how much it's going to be. I think he touched on 10 million, but it wasn't if it was, 10 million per school, per payout, whatever. He's trying to prepare the Kansas people of a budget decrease, but also trying to get them to donate more and not depend on the money from the TV end of it to sustain athletics for Kansas. So what are your thoughts on, I think we kind of agree that the Big 12 money is going to be less, one, because it's going to be more teams. It's going to be 12 teams instead of 10. So it's going to be more slices of the pie. But what do you think about that? Because us and U of H joining the Big 12, what is it right now? 5.5, 6 million from the American to 20 million per? Let's say 20 and 25. That's great. That's great. Whereas Kansas going from 35 to 20, 25 isn't great. What are your thoughts on that, the payout being less for Big 12 schools?
I mean, I think it's a good pitch to try to get donors in because, like you said, you're not going to be able to replace the Texas and UT Oklahoma markets. They drive a lot of that. And so, yes, while the numbers he presented might not be completely accurate because we don't know exactly how much it's going to drop, it is going to drop. And so, I sort of like that, just, being honest up front and being like, we're going to see, a deficit or a budget drop. So if you want, Kansas to continue to be able to, I don't know exactly how he worded it, but stay up to the level that, or their standards athletically or whatever, then donate, and makes sense to me.
And Andy, before I come to you, Travis Goff, he knows the importance of football. He knows Kansas football has I'm going to say this, has stunk, underachieved for years. So he realizes that the importance of football, success on the field will help donations, money, and those things. So he's being honest, and I commend him for that. But what are your thoughts on the impact financially to the Big 12 schools once Texas and Oklahoma do leave?
No, yeah, for sure. Overall, in the big picture, grand scheme of things, obviously that makes sense. Losing those two teams, especially from the football perspective, they generate a lot of revenue and a lot of eyeballs for the conference. And like James said, it's one heck of a pitch to try to get some of the donors to give more money to the school. But and I can't remember what article it was or what outlet it was. Kris, you sent to us a while ago regarding someone saying that really it was regarding Pac-12 and how investments in the athletic program comes back and it's good for the university overall as a whole. And it certainly hasn't been the case, like you mentioned, with Kansas in football. So you'd imagine it'd be a much bigger deal for a school like Kansas, where really kind of their main attraction is their men's basketball program, their basketball program overall, and not much so their football program. And if they're losing $15 million in TV revenue, or their slice of the pie, obviously it's going to affect them a lot more. But really, when you look at the alternative, there's not, it's either do that or whatever. What is the other alternative? Is there any? Stick with 8 as the Big 8 and try to navigate through that. That doesn't seem like that would be viable for a long-term solution. So at the end of the day, they, like we said, it's a good pitch to try to get donors to donate, but what really is the alternative? Because if somehow the Big 12 deformed, well, then Kansas has to look for different alternatives elsewhere.
We got 2 more segments. One is going to be our sponsor segment, so I'm going to go solo screen for about 2 minutes. And then when I come back to both of you guys, get ready to, we know what we do, UVA Cincinnati. Give me your prediction on that matchup. So I'm going solo for a segment brought to you by Steve Saxenian and the Saxenian family. All right, here we go. UVA fans, UVA alums, well, honestly, folks talking sports fans, FTS fans. This is for you. Houston Cougars alums and football fans. Lock in seats for 2022 with a season ticket deposit for only $75. The deposit to the season tickets will go toward the final cost of the 2022 season tickets. Fans can email tickets@uh.edu or call 713-GO-COUGS, 713-462-6647 during regular business hours. Lock in your seats for the 2022 Houston football season and be part of all the excitement as the Cougs stand ready to compete for another conference championship before heading into the Big 12 Conference. Score big with Houston football. Same great seats for every game. Earn priority points, flexible payment plan options, exclusive invitations to Houston football events, priority access to postseason tickets, priority access to single game tickets and pre-sales for the home games, special pre-sale ticket offers to special events held at U8 athletics facilities. This segment was sponsored by Steve Saxenian and the Saxenian family. All right. This Sunday, February 6th, 5 p.m. Central Time in Cincinnati at Fifth Third Arena. Game's going to be on ESPN2. Houston Cougars men's basketball, Cincinnati Bearcats. Either one of you guys got the line?
I couldn't find it online.
Okay. No biggie, because, that's not my thing. I lean on you guys for that kind of knowledge. But what do you say? Who's going to win? Is this the matchup where Houston is no longer undefeated? in conference?
I mean, I think I'm going to take Houston just because I think we'll see Cincinnati start off strong. They haven't played in a week, or maybe even like 8 days. But they haven't played since the 30th, since their game with Memphis got postponed.
Right.
So I think we'll see them come out strong out of the gates. But I think Houston will, in the end, will be too much. Win by 2 to 3 possessions, so 4 to 6 points probably.
Andy, what do you say?
Yeah, I think historically, you look at it, Cincinnati's been one of the toughest places for Houston to play while they've been in the American Athletic Conference. But I'll lean Houston winning just in terms overall. Again, that senior leadership and the first game of the week, I feel like they'll hang on and win. Now, I do think it'll probably be a within 5 points. I don't know what the line is, but I'd choose the under if it was anything over that. But I think Houston edges out Cincinnati.
Okay, I think the backcourts for each team will be key. Whoever wins that matchup in the backcourts with Jamal Sheck, Kyle Edwards, Taze, Ramon Walker, David DeJulius, Michael Adams Wood, Jeremiah Davenport for the Bearcats. Whichever backcourt wins will probably win the game. I'm going to say it. U of H, the Bearcats are going to win. Let's put it like that. U of H won't lose. The Bearcats are going to win.
You guarantee it?
That. Nope, not guaranteeing it.
No guarantee.
Not doing that at all. No, I just think, like I said earlier in the show, I think one of these next 3 games, Houston is going to lose. Just the odds, honestly, because I don't see them going undefeated. Even if they were healthy, they were not going undefeated in conference play. So why not just pick the 9th game of conference play for the loss? So, that's all. Don't shoot me. Don't bet on it. Don't spend your hard-earned money on what I said. Okay. Don't hit me up on Twitter. Said you were wrong when U of H won. Okay. That's fine too. No big deal there. But yeah, I think the Bearcats are going to win Sunday.
Once the NBA Summer League happens next summer, we gotta get a show in Vegas, and you gotta give your picks of the day, Kris.
That's a goal. Hey, why not? That's Summer League is all well. Hopefully, it'll be much better health-wise for everybody. Yeah, because I was going to go to Summer League last year, but that's when everything started getting bad again. So, but yeah, and sponsorships talk, because sponsorships can help take us on trips. So, You're out there, alums, U of H alums, you want to support us, you like what we do here in Full Talkin' Sports, our U of H-centric segments. It's not all U of H, but it's, majority U of H, especially when Willie Gibson is not able to join us. But
now, like you say, Kris, that sponsorship support, and then it leads to more coverage, more in-depth coverage.
It does. And I thought about this, and I'm going to go with this, and I think each of us can say it. We do, and have done less with more. I would like to be able to do more with more. Okay? Does that make sense? We've done a lot with less. We've done a lot, less with more. I want to do more with more. Okay? We've done so much with less budget, less this, less that. I want us to see what we could do with a bigger budget, with bigger bells and whistles and a lot of things coming at our fingertips. So sponsors, that's where you come in. Support us. We've done all this more with less kind of stuff. I think I had it backwards earlier. More with less. I want us to do more with more. As we wrap it up, James Mueller.
We can do live shows in the crowd.
Yes. And it won't hurt us to say this. James and I had talked about it after one of the basketball games. When he's on the road in football season, we'd like to have him chime in, do a Folks Talking Sports with James on the road. Do that. Maybe do something with James at the AAC basketball tournament in Fort Worth if he's able to go. Things like that. All those things in the plan. All that. So, yes.
New Orleans, Houston next season.
So, yes, all those things are in the works. Sponsors, we hope you enjoy our show. Going to wrap it up now. James, how can folks find you and interact with you, connect with you via social media?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at JDM2186, and all my work is at thedailycougar.com.
Mr. Yanez, how can folks find you, sir?
Yeah, they can follow me on Twitter at Yanez_5. Be sure to check out another U of H Center podcast at Pod Slamajama. That's PAWD Slamajama. Dayon and I obviously have discussed. Right now, it's the middle of basketball season. It's a lot of UH men's basketball, a lot of UH women's basketball talk. But throughout the course of the season, obviously, we've done a good job of getting guests that hopefully people find engaging and entertaining. So a lot of different avenues for whether it's UH or Kris. I know you do a lot of Houston Rockets, your Rockets talk. So we're out there. I know there was a tweet I saw today about someone complaining to one of the local radio personalities about them. Obviously, of course, they're going to talk about the Houston Texans for the bulk of the year when they have the 6th ranked team in the nation in men's basketball, literally down in downtown. So there's certainly a market there that's to be taken advantage of.
Agreed. And we would like help to fill that gap of entertainment and information for fans, because this is still football towns. Houston, especially pro football, despite the Texas being a mess. But we know that there are basketball fans out there. We know there are U of H basketball fans out there. So we're saying to you fans, support us. Follow Folks Talking Sports. Support us financially. Let's be real. It's a business too. Support us financially and help us get the word out about U of H basketball. Basketball in town.
And hit that retweet button.
Hit that retweet button.
That's
like
free.
button.
That is free.
Yes, indeed. And wrap it up. I'm Kris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review. Thank you very much for joining another edition of Folks Talking Sports, presented by Houston Roundball Review, sponsored by Steve Saxenian and the Saxenian family. Twitter, I am the HR Review. Houston Roundball Review on YouTube. Houston Roundball Review on Instagram. Been around since, well, say it like this, I'm almost 50 next month. The Houston Roundball Review's been around since 1994. Local name, global perspective. Take care, everybody. See you next time.